From United Nations Radio in New York, this is UN Calling Asia.
संयुक्त राष्ट्र संघ रेडियो की आवाज
联合国电台
जातिसंघ
Radio Perserikatan Bangsa-Bangsa
अक़वाम मुत्तहिदा
UN Calling Asia.
A very warm welcome to this week's program. I am Gail Bindley Taylor Sainte. In this edition, the UN celebrates its 62nd birthday. UN Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon says the organization should use the day to build better understanding of what it can do in the world.
Let us use this day to help build a better understanding for our organization, what it is, what it does, and what it can do.
Tokelau is to remain a territory of New Zealand after losing its referendum by 16 votes.
I think it's a very important moment for the parties in Nepal to step back and review what has led to a breakdown of confidence between a number of them.
The Secretary-General's Special Representative in Nepal, Ian Martin, on the situation there. More in a moment. On Wednesday, October 24th, the international community celebrated the 62nd anniversary of the founding of the United Nations with celebrations around the world. Some of the activities ranged from the planting of 2,000 trees in Ethiopia to the opening of the first joint exhibition by more than 20 UN entities inside one of the biggest shopping malls in Asia, the staging of a public forum in Afghanistan, to the holding of the traditional classical music concert in New York, which this year featured the Seoul Philharmonic Orchestra. Chanel Cathy reports.
In Bangkok, at the headquarters of the Economic Commission for Asia and the Pacific, there was a celebration with a difference involving 22 UN entities and international organizations which hosted a 3-day event at Central World, the city's largest mall. The Commission chose a public venue to showcase the many ways in which the UN is working to improve the lives of people around the world. Thai Prime Minister Surayud Chalanot told a separate ceremony to mark the day that for the UN to maintain its rightful place on the world stage, continuing reform was necessary. He also noted that member states too had to do their part to provide the UN with sufficient resources and the political will to take action as and when necessary.
For his part, Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon, in his statement to mark the day, said the world was changing in the UN's favour as more and more people and governments understood that it was the only path to achieving an independent and globalising world. He expressed his determination to ensure that the world body made progress on the many pressing issues of our time, including meeting the Millennium Development Goals and taking global and decisive action on climate change. He also emphasized the human rights work of the UN, which he said needed as much attention as the first 2 pillars of security and development. Against this backdrop, he called for the transformation of the organization itself to demonstrate that it can meet the needs of both the global community and people around the world.
Succeeding generations will judge us on the actions we take now, on results. On this United Nations Day, let us rededicate ourselves to achieving them.
The UN Secretary-General this week also proposed a $4.2 billion budget to fund the work of the United Nations for the next 2 years. Mr. Ban told the General Assembly's Budget Committee that the half percentage point in growth in some areas is balanced by reallocations to other areas. He urged the member states to support a stronger world body, noting that among the proposed changes for the next 2 years would be to strengthen the Department of Political Affairs so that it can better anticipate crises and focus on proactive, preventive diplomacy. Tokelau will remain a territory of New Zealand after the citizens of the 3 small atolls in the Pacific Ocean fell 16 votes short of gaining self-government in a United Nations supervised referendum held this week. This was the second referendum held in 2 years, and this time around was supported by 64% of the population voting in favour of self-government. But as we hear in this conversation I had with Ariane Romery, an information officer who actually travelled with the 5-member team of UN monitors, it was still not enough to change the island's non-self-governing status.
It is a very narrow margin, but it's also the expression of the will of the people, so that result stands at the moment, and we respect that result. But one thing that was made clear yesterday by New Zealand's Administrator David Payton was that as it does move forward, that Tokelau will continue to have New Zealand's full support.
Did you get any sort of reactions from people since you traveled around the atolls? What were the sort of reactions of people who were going to vote? Were they willing to accept whatever happened at the end of the process?
Yes, I must say, travelling with the referendum team over the 5 days, there was certainly a mood of optimism, I would say, certainly among the political leadership. People felt that this time the vote really would get through. The Ulu of Tokelau was even predicting a yes vote as high as 85%. So it was really quite a surprise, I think, to everybody yesterday. And last night the mood was certainly very sombre, and I would say that the political leadership certainly were surprised and disappointed. I think there was a recognition that this is a free expression of the people, and what needs to happen now is that the community needs to talk more together about what else might be required to move forward on that path to self-determination.
Now, the population is very small, and I just wondered about the voter turnout. What was that like as compared to, say, the last referendum?
Yes, well, the population of the 3 atolls is about just under 1,500 people, but those eligible to vote, of those only over 18, of course. So there were about 789 people who were registered to vote, and 88% of those did turn out. There were more people who were registered to vote this referendum than in the February 2006 referendum. So voter turnout was good, but unfortunately the margin was very, very narrow and not quite big enough to carry the change of status.
Any sense from the community, from what you're hearing, as to what might have been responsible for the vote being the way it was?
I think there's still a sense of uncertainty among some people. There's been a very good consultation process and a lot of information given out, but it's just clear that some people are still a bit reticent. They think it's a very, very big step, and they're not sure yet whether it's going too fast, and they want a little bit more time to think about it. This is just some of the anecdotal feedback that people are saying.
Do you know whether there is an opportunity for them to have another referendum? Is that open?
What happens next is very much open. The UN monitoring here will report back to the Committee on Decolonisation, but whether or not they choose to hold another referendum is something that really needs to be decided by the community of Tokelau in discussion with New Zealand. But for the moment, Tokelau remains on the list of 16, the decolonisation list. Certainly Ambassador Ishize of Papua New Guinea, who's here representing the Committee of 24, has made it clear to people that the UN will continue to listen and to give whatever support that we can.
Ariane Romery speaking with me about the recent referendum results in Tokelau. The situation in Nepal continues to be one of concern to the UN as the Security Council meets to review progress in the peace process and implementation of the mandate of its mission in Nepal. According to the Secretary-General's Special Representative Ian Martin, who is in New York for the discussion, Nepal is very much at the crossroads, and his hope is that much-needed dialogue between the parties will go a long way to bringing the peace process back on track.
The interim legislature parliament is due to convene again on the 29th of October after the long Dashain holiday, and indeed they adjourned because negotiations amongst the leaders had not managed to produce a compromise. There are 2 issues before this special session of the legislature, both put before it by the Maoists. One is their call for the immediate declaration of a republic, and the other is a call for a move to a fully proportional electoral system rather than the mixed system that had previously been agreed among the parties. There seem to be some signs that there could be a compromise on the first issue as to how to deal with the question of declaration or declaration of intent towards a republic,